There's a certain creak the porch makes when you've lived long enough to notice it. Not the kind that complains, not the kind that cracks in protest. It's the kind that breathes with you, knows your weight, carries your years. That last step just before the dew-warped floorboard near the rail always made that sound. Soft, familiar, like a reminder you're still here. Every morning since 1976, I've stepped out onto that porch with the same ceramic mug, navy blue, chipped along the lip, filled with too strong coffee and a silence only a widower can describe. I'd sit in the same chair, rub the scar under my ribs, courtesy of Vietnam, and tell the wind, Eileen would have hated this weather. That morning, though, the wind didn't answer, because something else was already screaming. A red sign, bold, obnoxious, slammed into the grass like a verdict. Sold. I stood there on the porch, coffee in hand, slippers soft against the old boards. I didn't panic. I didn't yell. That's not how old men panic. We sink inward slowly like barns collapsing under snow. It took me a full minute to put the mug down without spilling. My fingers trembled, not from age, no, from the kind of confusion that hits harder than any fever. I walked to the lawn like I was walking through molasses. My knees stiff, my spine upright only out of habit. The sold sign had the name of a realty company, Miller Realty. I'd never called them, never met them, but apparently they'd met my children. I went back inside and opened the drawer where I kept the documents, birth certificates, tax records, the house deed. The drawer was too light. I already knew what was missing. In its place was an envelope, manila, folded neatly. My name scribbled on the front in my daughter Carol's handwriting. Dad, we didn't want to upset you, but the house was just sitting here and well, with everything going on. It felt like the right time. We didn't want you worrying about taxes or maintenance we thought it would be better this way. Please don't be angry. Love, Carol. I folded the note once. Then again and again, until it was so small it couldn't speak anymore. Carol lives 8 minutes away if you take Maple instead of 4th. I drove, still drive. My truck's old like me but stubborn. I pulled into her driveway, didn't bother to knock. I just stood outside until Richard, her husband, opened the door. He looked surprised. Frank, you okay? I stared at him for a beat. Get Carol? Sure thing. Carol came out seconds later. She was in yoga pants and an oversized shirt that said life is good. Ironic. Dad, you sold my house. Her lips parted. Dad, it's not. You sold my house, I repeated, not as a question, as a funeral bell. Her eyes welled. We had to. With everything going on, at least tuition, Richard's job, and we thought you might. Might what? I asked. Die soon. She flinched. There it was, not said but loud. We thought, she said quietly, that maybe the house should go to someone who can, use it. I nodded. And did you think to ask the man who built it? We had power of attorney after your surgery. Temporary, I snapped. For medical decisions, not for this. I thought you'd be grateful, whispered. No more yard work, no more roof repairs. We had your best interest. No, I said, stepping back. You had your debts and you thought I wouldn't be here to care. I didn't shout, didn't slam the door. That's not my style. I drove back, parked in the garage, sat on the workbench where I carved Eileen's initials the day we moved in. The house felt colder now, like it knew, like walls can grieve too. I ran my fingers along the wood, dust, paint flakes, a loose screw, all mine. I had one photo of the original build, me in army pants holding a hammer, grinning like a fool with a future. They sold that for what? Student loans. That night I made 2 calls. The first was to a lawyer, Mr. Ellison. He'd helped me with Eileen's will, sharp man, good listener. I told him I needed to challenge a sale. Did you sign anything? He asked. No. Did they have legal authority? Not anymore. Then we fight, he said. The second call was to my son Marcus. He didn't answer. He hadn't for months. The next morning I didn't drink coffee. I brewed it, let it sit, but I didn't drink it. Instead, I sat on the porch and listened to that step breathe under my weight. One last time, just in case. The air was cool, the sky pale. I watched a squirrel dart across the driveway like it knew something I didn't. Across the street, a moving van pulled into the Johnsons'. New neighbors, young family. I wondered what they'd do if they knew the man next door had been evicted by his own blood. But I wasn't evicted yet, not if I had breath, not if I had fight. I rubbed my scar, looked at the nails on the rail. This house wasn't just my shelter, it was my story, and I wasn't done writing it. You learn something strange when you try to reclaim what's yours. People look at you funny for still wanting it. When Mr. Ellison opened the door to his office, he gave me the look I've grown used to, a mix of concern and that gentle condescension they save for old men who show up without an appointment. "Franklin," he said, shaking my hand like I might break. "You still got that strong grip, huh?" "I'm not here for a checkup," I said. "I need my house back." He didn't flinch, that's why I trusted him. We sat in his cramped office, old bookshelves towering around us like courtrooms of the past. A dusty lemon tree sat in a chipped pot near the window. It didn't have fruit, just leaves that refused to die. He slid a yellow legal pad in front of him. "Walk me through it." I told him everything, the sign, the forged assumption of power, the betrayal packed neatly into a manila envelope. His pen scratched quietly. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he tapped the paper twice. "Good news is, temporary medical power of attorney doesn't give them the right to sell real estate, especially not without written, notarized consent. Bad news is, the sale's already in closing." "So I'm too late," he shook his head. "Not necessarily, but we'll need to move fast. We file for an emergency injunction. If the judge grants it, we freeze the transfer until a hearing. And if the judge doesn't, then you've got 30 days to move out of the house you built." I signed the paperwork with a pen that felt heavier than a hammer, not because of the ink, but because of the memory, of laying foundation with my own hands, of Eileen handing me lemonade when I came in soaked in sweat, of Marcus taking his first steps across that porch, of Carol planting the lemon tree that now leaned into Ellison's office window like it was trying to remember her better days, before she forgot me. On the way out, Ellison put a hand on my shoulder. "You're not crazy," he said. Did I ask if I was? "No," he smiled. "But you looked like someone who'd been made to feel that way." When I got home, there was a strange car in the driveway, not Carol's, not Marcus's, a white sedan with a magnetic real estate sticker on the door. Miller Realty, Laura Jensen. I didn't knock, didn't call out, just walked in. The smell of lavender and fresh paint slapped me across the face like I didn't belong. Two strangers stood in the hallway, one in a pantsuit holding a clipboard, the other, a couple in their 30s wearing two wide smiles. "This is Mr. Brooks," the realtor chirped. "He's the current, former owner, but don't worry, we're on schedule." The woman smiled. "It's such a cozy home. We love the bones. It just feels lived in." I stared at the realtor. "Did you ask permission to enter?" She blinked. "Excuse me. You're standing in my kitchen," I said flatly. "Without my permission, that's called trespassing." The couple looked uncomfortable. The realtor cleared her throat. "Mr. Brooks, your daughter assured us." "My lawyer assures me the sale isn't legal." A beat of silence. Then the couple backed away like I was contagious. The realtor's tone changed. "Sir, perhaps we can talk outside." "No," said, "but you can leave." And I stood there until they did. That night I found Carol on the front steps. She wasn't crying, but close. "You embarrassed me," she said. "You stole from me." She swallowed. "You don't understand how hard it's been." "I understand," I said slowly, "that you didn't ask, that you thought your father was easier to erase than to face." A beat, then another. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a key. "I thought you might want this." It was the garage key, the one I'd given Marcus when he was 16 and begged to rebuild his motorcycle inside, the one he never returned. "You gave it to him," I said. "I didn't think you'd remember." I looked at her for a long time, not with anger, not with disappointment, but with that hollow space you get when the person in front of you used to be someone you trusted. "Your mother," I said, "once told me a family can survive losing money, but not losing respect." And I went inside. The next morning the porch creaked like always, but it sounded different, more tired, like it was bracing for goodbye. I sat in my chair. The blue mug was empty, but I held it anyway. My fingers traced the chip along the lip, just enough imperfection to remind me it had survived. Ellison called around 11 a.m. "We got the injunction," he said. "You've got time." "Good. But I want you to prepare for a fight, Franklin." I've been fighting my whole life, I said. This time I get to choose why. Some houses die before the people in them do. You can feel it in the way the floors no longer echo your steps or how the light stops falling the same way through the kitchen window. You walk through the rooms like a guest in your own skin. Even the doorknobs feel foreign, too cold, too smooth, too silent. That's what my house felt like after the injunction. A paused death, breathing but not living. I spent the next few days walking through every inch of it, not to check for damage, not to prepare for the hearing, but to remember, because that house had more of me inside it than my own skin did. There were places only I knew about, like the panel in the hallway closet that stuck unless you tapped it twice, or the attic beam where Eileen etched our initials after our first winter together when the snow collapsed the fence and we thought God was giving us a test. And there were ghosts, not the scary kind, the honest kind, the ones that hum in the walls when your grandchildren are too loud, that laugh with the pipes when you turn on the hot water in the bathroom she used to sing in, the kind that live in wallpaper no one dared to repaint. Carol stopped calling. Marcus still hadn't returned mine. On day 4, I found myself standing in his old room. The posters were gone. So was the guitar he never learned to play, but the dents in the wall where he once punched it during a fight about curfew were still there. I reached out, touched the spot with my thumb, and felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not hurt, just history. It's strange how we forgive drywall faster than people. That night the wind came harder than usual. The front door creaked, the old weather vane on the shed spun like it was possessed. I stayed up reading, or trying to. My eyes kept going back to the photo on the mantel. Me, Eileen, Carol at 12, Marcus at 8. We were at a park. I was smiling like a man who thought the future had a map. I don't remember what happened that day, but I remember how I felt. Warm, centered, home. Funny how time blurs the dates but sharpens the feelings. The next morning I heard someone knock, not at the door, at the garage. I opened it to find Marcus standing there. Older, bearded, still wearing that leather jacket I hated in college. "Didn't think you'd answer," he said. "Didn't think you'd knock." We stood in silence. It stretched between us like rope, not tight enough to hang us, but frayed enough to snap. "I heard about the house," he finally said. "You mean the one you haven't visited in 3 years?" He flinched. "I didn't know they were gonna sell it. You didn't ask. I didn't know I needed permission to exist." And there it was. Not about the house, not really. About everything that was said and unsaid since Eileen died. We went inside. He didn't sit in the living room, went straight to the garage, of course. That's where we always met halfway. "I tried fixing the bike," he said, pointing to the old Yamaha in the corner. "Never ran right. You weren't patient. You weren't there. That landed like gravel in the throat." I sat on the bench, the same one where I first showed him how to change a spark plug. "I didn't know how to grieve out loud," I said. "I didn't know how to forgive silence," he replied. We didn't speak for a while after that, but we didn't leave either. And sometimes that's the closest men get to an apology. As he left, Marcus paused at the door. "If you lose the house—" "I won't," I said. He looked at me like he didn't know whether to believe that. "Okay," he said, "but if you do, can I keep the porch swing?" I stared at him, then nodded once, not because I planned to give it up, but because I saw the boy in him again, just for a second, and that boy had once helped me hang that swing with a crooked level and too much pride. Some things you forgive with a nod, even if they are not yours to give. I never liked courtrooms. They always smelled like cold metal and old paper, like justice was a dusty file cabinet no one opened unless they had to. Ellison met me on the courthouse steps that morning, wearing a suit too new for a man his age. He carried a folder tucked under his arm and a face full of calm. "You ready?" he asked. I adjusted my tie, one of the few I owned. "Do I look ready?" "You look like a man who's walked through worse." I chuckled, 'cause I have. Inside, the courtroom was smaller than I expected. No grand chandeliers or echoing ceilings, just folding chairs and a ceiling fan that clicked every third spin. The judge, a woman with sharp eyes and tired posture, looked like she'd seen every kind of family lie and still hoped one day she wouldn't. Carol was there. So was Richard. They sat on the other side, looking down, holding hands too tightly for people who claim to act out of love. Ellison opened. He spoke calmly, clearly, like a man building a staircase word by word. "This isn't about real estate," he said. "This is about consent, about dignity, about whether a man who served his country, who raised 2 children in a home he built himself, can have that home taken without even a conversation." He paused, then added, "because someone thought he'd die soon." The room went still. Carol's lawyer countered. She used words like burden, financial distress, emergency decisions. She called me an elderly dependent twice. I almost laughed. I'm 78, not invisible. Then they showed the medical files, the surgery, the complications, my slow recovery. They tried to paint a picture of a man fading, but I'd seen the real version in the mirror that morning, and he still shaved without shaking. When it was my turn, I stood. I didn't speak right away. Didn't need to. Silence is a kind of testimony, too. Then I said, "Your Honor, I built that house in 1976, poured the concrete myself, burned my hands on the roof shingles. That porch creaks because I nailed it down with a busted hammer from a pawn shop." I looked at Carol. She looked away. "I buried my wife in that town. I held my grandson on that porch swing. I have never missed a tax payment, never borrowed more than I could repay, and I never, not once, signed away my home." I paused. They didn't ask because they thought I wouldn't be around long enough to matter. The judge sat quiet for a while, then she leaned forward. "I'm placing a hold on the sale," she said, "pending a full hearing, and I want a forensic review of the power of attorney paperwork." Carol's lawyer blinked. Richard squeezed her hand. Ellison nodded. Me. I just exhaled. Outside, the sun hit harder than usual. The kind that burns not because it's hot, but because you've been cold too long. Ellison clapped me on the back. "Round one, old man." "I don't want rounds," I said. "I want my home. You'll get it." We both knew that wasn't guaranteed, but sometimes a courtroom bench feels sturdier than the one on your own porch. That night I sat in the swing. The porch light flickered like it couldn't decide what story to believe. The house behind me creaked softly like it was listening. I whispered, "Not yet. I'm not leaving yet." And I swear, for a moment the porch didn't creak, it nodded. I thought the hearing would bring some kind of peace, like naming the problem would tame it. But I forgot how betrayal lingers, not loud, just constant, like the hum of a faulty light bulb no one bothers to replace. 2 days after the judge's hold, a woman knocked on my door. Not Carol, not another agent. She wore a badge. "Mr. Brooks," she said, "I'm Detective Alicia Denton. I'm here to talk about a document you might have signed or didn't." She was calm, professional, young enough to still believe in the system. I invited her in. We sat at the kitchen table, the one where Marcus spilled orange juice every morning for 5 years. She opened a folder. "The signature on the transfer of power has inconsistencies." I raised an eyebrow. "Meaning?" She turned the folder. My name stared back at me in ink that looked familiar but not quite mine. "We're running it against verified samples, tax returns, your military discharge papers, even your mortgage application. And, let's just say," she said, "you loop your Ks, this one doesn't." After she left, I sat at the table for a long time, not in anger, in mourning, because forging a name is one thing, but forging someone's worth, that takes something colder. Carol had been good at signatures. When she was a kid, she'd write mine on school forms because I worked nights and didn't want her teachers thinking I was absent. I used to think that was sweet. Now I wasn't so sure. Ellison called later. "We got a break," he said. "The signature's likely forged. Denton's involved now. Is she any good?" "She's young." "That's not an answer." "She's sharp," he admitted, "and persistent, but this will get messier before it gets clearer." "How messy?" "Enough that your kids might have to testify, under oath." That night the air was thick. Thunder murmured in the distance like an old grudge. I sat in the garage, not doing anything in particular, just existing. Then I heard gravel crunch outside. I opened the door to see Carol standing in the rain without an umbrella. She looked smaller. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. We sat in silence. Just the sound of rain tapping the roof and memory tapping our ribs. "I didn't think it'd go this far," she said finally. That makes two of us. She picked at her sleeve. Marcus told me what you said about Mom, about respect. I meant it. I know. A long pause, then she said it wasn't about the money. I looked at her, waited. It was about control, she whispered. I didn't know how to help you and it scared me, so I did something stupid that felt like action. You did something permanent, I said. I know. I didn't tell her I forgave her. Not yet. Some things need time. Some things need truth. Detective Denton's looking into the papers, I said. Carol nodded. She called me. And I told her the truth. I blinked. You did. She nodded again. I said I submitted the form. I said I thought it was temporary. I said I didn't know the difference between helping and taking over. I looked at her face. No makeup, no spin, just fatigue and shame, and maybe, just maybe, hope. As she left, she paused by the door. Do you still want me at the hearing? She asked. That depends, I said, on whether you'll sit next to me or across from me. She nodded once. I'll let you know. And she disappeared into the rain. I sat back down on the garage bench beside the old work gloves that still held the shape of my hands. Outside, the storm grew louder. Inside, I didn't flinch. Because sometimes storms don't come to break you. They come to clear the air. I never packed for war. The army packed for me duffels, numbers, orders, but this was different. This time I had to pack my life, not because I was moving, but because I might lose it. The judge set the full hearing date, 2 weeks. Ellison said we were prepared, but preparation doesn't make you ready. Not when the home you built could be reassigned like a parking space. So I walked through the house again. This time with boxes, not to move, to remember. In the hallway closet, I found the baseball glove Marcus used once before giving up sports forever. It still had the smell of oil and dust. In the bathroom drawer, a pink barrette Eileen once used to clip Carol's hair before school. Still snapped shut, still holding its shape. In the attic, a box labeled Christmas 1988. Inside, cracked ornaments, a felt Santa missing one eye, and a letter from Eileen that began with, "To the love of my life. Even when you snore." I sat down and cried. Not loud, just enough to fog my glasses. Carol called that night. She didn't ask how I was. She asked if she could stop by. I said yes. She came alone, no Richard, no makeup. Just a paper bag in one hand and a photo album in the other. "I found these in storage," she said. We sat on the floor of the living room like two strangers playing memory with ghosts. There was a photo of me and Eileen in the backyard, sunburned and laughing, holding garden shears and lemonade. A picture of Marcus in his Halloween astronaut costume, 3 sizes too big. A birthday party, a Christmas morning, a family before the cracks formed. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "For what?" I asked, even though I knew. "For letting fear make me forget who you are." The next morning, I opened the mailbox and found a letter. No return address. Inside was a handwritten note. "Mr. Brooks, my wife and I were the couple who visited your home with the realtor. We didn't know the full situation. We just wanted a place that felt lived in. But now, after learning more, we want you to know if you win, we'll walk away from the deal. You deserve to stay. Best of luck. Eric and Linda W." I read the letter 3 times, then placed it beside Eileen's photo, and whispered, "People surprise you." Detective Denton stopped by again. This time she looked tired. "We got the handwriting analysis back," she said. "It's a match." "A match to who?" "Carol and Richard." My breath caught. She handed me a copy of the report. "We're recommending charges, but that'll be up to you. Up to me. You can push for criminal prosecution or let it stay in civil court." I stared at the page, at my daughter's name in black ink, at the idea of a courtroom not just for justice but for judgment. "I need time," I said. "Take it," she replied, "but not too long, the hearing's coming." That night I made tea instead of coffee, less bitter, less memory. I sat in the porch swing and watched the stars appear one by one. The house behind me creaked again, but this time it didn't feel tired. It felt awake, like it was listening, like it was waiting. And maybe for the first time in weeks, I felt ready to fight, not for the house, but for the story it held, because some stories aren't passed down. They're stood up for. Courthouse felt smaller the second time. Not because the walls had moved, but because I had. This time I wasn't just defending myself. I was deciding what kind of man I wanted to be, even in the face of betrayal. Ellison wore the same suit, same calm, same quiet grip on my shoulder before we entered. But today there were more people, reporters, neighbors, people who pretended not to stare. Carol sat 2 rows behind me. She didn't look at me, but she was there. That counted for something. The judge called the room to order. First up, the handwriting analysis. Detective Denton took the stand, clear, professional, careful with every word. We determined with 95% certainty, she said, that the signature on the power of attorney form does not belong to Mr. Brooks and instead matches the handwriting of Ms. Carol Whitmore. A murmur passed through the courtroom like a shiver. Carol lowered her eyes. Her lawyer asked for recess. The judge granted it. In the hallway, Ellison turned to me. She may withdraw her opposition. We may not need to fight this much longer. I nodded, but a knot still sat in my chest. During recess, Carol approached me. I was sitting on a bench near the vending machine, holding a cup of terrible coffee. She sat down beside me, close enough to share air, far enough to preserve regret. "I'm not going to fight you anymore," she said. I sipped the coffee, didn't answer. I told the judge I'm dropping my claim to the house. Still, I said nothing. "I didn't mean for it to get this far," she whispered. "You meant to take what wasn't yours," I replied. "You just didn't expect me to fight." She winced. "I wasn't trying to steal," she said. "I was trying to protect what I thought was left." I finally looked at her. Her face, older, softer. No makeup, looked more like Eileen's than I'd ever noticed. "I'm still here," I said. "There's plenty left." Back in the courtroom, her lawyer announced the withdrawal. The judge nodded. "Then the house remains in Mr. Brooks's sole ownership." Ellison exhaled beside me, but I didn't. Not yet. Outside, the sun was gentle. Fall was arriving, quiet and yellow like a secret whispered by leaves. Carol walked with me to the sidewalk. We stood beside my truck. "What happens now?" she asked. "That depends on whether you come back as my daughter," I said, "or just someone who once lived in the same house." She didn't reply, but she hugged me, not for long, not like before, but like someone who remembered what that felt like. And that was a start. That evening I swept the porch, not because it was dirty, but because I finally could, knowing it was still mine. I always thought I'd die in that house. Not in a dramatic way, just quietly, in the bed Eileen and I shared for 40 years, with the window cracked open and the smell of rain drifting in. But now that I had it back, something inside me shifted. Maybe you don't hold onto a house to die in it. Maybe you hold onto it long enough to know when it's time to let go on your own terms. The following week, Ellison brought over the final paperwork. "All yours," he said, placing the folder on the kitchen table. Again, I smirked. He grinned, this time for good. We shared a quiet toast with lukewarm coffee, no champagne, no signatures, just relief. I looked out the window at the porch swing. It swayed slightly in the breeze like it was nodding. Later that night, I sat at my desk with a pen and a fresh sheet of paper. Not to write a will, to write a decision. The next morning, I called a nonprofit, Harmony House for Children, a place Eileen used to volunteer when the kids were young. A home for children who didn't have one, or didn't know what one should feel like. "I want to make a donation," I told the director. "What kind?" she asked. "A permanent one," I said. When Carol found out, she came by in tears. "You're giving it away?" she asked. After all this, I looked at her, softly but firmly. "I didn't fight for it to keep it," I said. "I fought for the right to choose. And you're choosing to give it up. I'm choosing to make it mean something." She sat down slowly. "You could have left it to us." "You already had your chance," I said, "and you sold it for less than it was worth." Tears welled in her eyes. "Not money," I clarified. "Worth in trust, in love, in memory." She didn't argue. She couldn't. The final ceremony wasn't grand. No ribbon cutting, no cameras, just me, standing on the porch one last time, handing the keys to a woman in a blue cardigan who said, "We'll take good care of it." Behind her, 3 kids ran across the front yard, laughing, chasing each other like they had no idea the ground under their feet had once been battleground for someone else's legacy. That made me smile. As I walked away, Marcus joined me at the truck. He'd flown in from our state, no words, just presence. You did it, he said. No, I replied. I let it go. He nodded. That's harder. I looked at him. Someday your kids will ask what this place was. What should I tell them? Tell them, I said, it was a home and that it still is. That night I sat on a borrowed porch in my new apartment. It didn't creak, didn't groan, it was just quiet, but I brought the mug and the scar and the memory of a house that now belonged to laughter. And for the first time in a long time, I slept without locking the door. You can't ever really visit your past, but sometimes it visits you. It was a Sunday morning, months after I gave the house to Harmony House. I was living in a quiet senior apartment on the east side, modest, simple. The walls were beige, the lights too white, but the silence was mine, and that mattered. I wasn't expecting a knock that morning. But there it was, 3 soft taps, no urgency. When I opened the door, a boy no more than 12 stood there holding a folded piece of paper. You Mr. Brooks? He asked. I am. He handed me the note and ran down the hall before I could ask a single question. I unfolded the paper. Mr. Brooks, thank you for the house. I live in the room with the blue wall now. My sister likes the swing, and my baby brother crawls all over the place. We put your picture in the hallway. The lady said you built the house with your hands. I think that's cool. I hope I build something one day too. Your friend, Tyree, room 2. I stood there for a long time. The hallway around me disappeared. Only the words remained, and the swing and the blue wall. Later that week I visited the house, not inside, just outside. I parked across the street, sat in the truck for a while and watched. A group of kids played tag in the front yard. Shoes flying, laughter louder than the wind. A porch light flickered at sunset. Same porch, same swing, but a new story. I didn't cry, but something in my chest softened. Before I left, I crossed the street and placed a small wooden box on the front steps. No name, no message. Inside was a photo of Eileen in the garden, a folded American flag, and a key, a spare I'd kept, not out of habit, out of hope, because hope doesn't mean holding on. Sometimes it means handing over. A few days later, Marcus called. Got a strange message today, he said. One of the kids at Harmony House sent me a drawing. Oh yeah, it was of you, said you were their house hero, drew a cape and everything. I laughed. I never wore a cape. You did now, he smiled. You doing okay? I am, I said and meant it. That night I took a walk, nothing fancy, just down the block and back, but every step felt lighter. Not because the years had left me, but because the weight had. It's a strange kind of strength. Not the kind you carry, but the kind you lay down when it's time. You never really leave a home. Not the kind built from bare hands and quiet mornings. You leave things behind, yes, walls, keys, photographs, but the soul of it, that travels with you. It's been almost a year since I gave away the house. I live in a smaller place now, just 2 rooms and a window that sticks, but the porch gets light in the mornings, and that's enough. I still wake up early. Still drink coffee from the navy blue mug with the chipped rim. Still rub the scar under my ribs out of habit. Some parts of me won't change, but the parts that needed to, they did. Carol visits once a week. She brings groceries I didn't ask for and stories I didn't know I missed. We don't talk much about what happened, but once in a while she'll ask, do you regret it? And every time I say, no, because I didn't lose the house. I released it, and in doing so I got something back. Not the building, but the man I was before they tried to take it. Marcus calls more often now. Sometimes with nothing to say, and those are my favorite calls. We talk about the kids, his work. And once, just once, he said, thanks for showing me how to be still. I smiled, didn't answer, but I knew what he meant. One afternoon I got a letter from Harmony House. It was short, just a line, Mr. Brooks, we planted a lemon tree in the backyard. The kids water it every morning, it's already sprouting. I folded the note slowly, placed it inside my desk drawer, next to Eileen's last birthday card, and the only photo I have of myself in uniform before the wrinkles took over. A lemon tree, funny, how something bitter becomes sweet in the right soil. Yesterday I walked by the old house again. Didn't stop, didn't stare. But I smiled when I heard music coming from the kitchen window, a child laughing from the backyard, and the porch swing creaking like it always did. still carrying weight, but no longer mine. That's the gift, to let something go, and know it landed in better hands. Tonight I'll drink tea instead of coffee. Eileen would have liked that. I'll sit on the porch and let the light fade gently. And if someone asks what I'm doing, I'll tell them I'm just listening to the echoes of what mattered, to the life I got to live, to the silence I chose, and to the story that finally found its ending. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my story. You may also be holding on to a certain home in your heart, whether it's a place, a memory, or a person who once meant everything. I hope you know that there are things we don't hold on to with our hands, but by the way we live, and by letting go at the right time. Wishing you and your family good health, a place to return to, and someone to remember.